everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're making a gluten-free and dairy-free carrot cake for Easter. The dry ingredients. 265 self-raising. So as I said, we're starting with the dry ingredients. And we're doing 265 grams self-raising flour to start. I use the gluten-free Dove's Farm one. Then 300 So I'm doing 300 grams of the dark soft brown sugar, and then about 35 grams of just normal caster sugar. But you could just do 335 grams of light muscovado sugar, but I didn't have any on hand. Some cinnamon, about a teaspoon, and I have some nutmeg here. So I'm using whole nutmeg and grating that up because it just releases more flavour, but you could use ground nutmeg if you prefer. And about a teaspoon. So to that we're adding a teaspoon of xanthan gum. Again, I use the gluten-free one by Dove's Farm. And then we're mixing it together and breaking up any big clumps of sugar. Now I'm just going to grate up or zest half an orange, although I do the whole one because this is quite a small orange. And I'm just using the microplane side of the grater. You don't want to use the white bits that are too deep because they can be bitter. So this cake I made prior to Easter, but I feel like it's quite an Easter theme. Well, it's a carrot cake to start, and I just did some simple kind of flowers on the top of it. And the design idea I got from Pinterest. This is dairy-free, natural, plain yogurt, I think, or Greek style yogurt. You could use plain too. And I use the outcrow one. And that's 100 grams of that. To that I'm adding 230 ml of oil. I'm using sunflower oil, but you can use any kind of flavourless oil. I have a ml measure on my scale, so that's what I'm using. And lastly, some vanilla. I was running low, so I had to really shake it out. Oh, and eggs, actually 4 eggs. I like using vanilla bean paste because it has just a bit more flavour than the vanilla essence. So to that I'm adding 4 eggs. And then we can get that all mixed up. I have the whisk attachment on my KitchenAid. Lastly, we just need to peel and grate 265 grams of carrots. I'm definitely not a professional cake baker by any means, but I do enjoy baking cakes and do it quite often. And then we need, if you want to add walnuts, you can add 100 grams of walnuts. That's really optional, and so is raisins. You could also add 100 or so grams of raisins if you like. I don't like raisins particularly, but I do like walnuts. And these walnuts here are walnuts that we were gifted, and then I candied them. So they have a bit of extra oomph, and they have some cinnamon and nutmeg on them. And I'm just breaking them up with my hands. They're already pretty broken up because when I crushed them to get them out of the shelf, they got pretty broken. So I'm just oiling up a Pyrex, and then we can get the batter inside of it. I do think I should have oiled this up more though, than what I did. I'm just scraping the bottom and making sure everything's mixed through. whilst I was doing that, I had my oven preheating at 160 degrees Celsius for a fan oven, and I'm just going to wipe off the sides of the pan, make sure nothing gets burnt onto it and gets really hard to clean. And there we are. Into the oven. Here it is coming out of the oven, and now we just need to decorate it. Usually I would make my icing for this with cream cheese, but I didn't realise I was out, so I had to make up a backup plan because I didn't want to go out to the shop to get some. So I'm just instead using butter and then adding cream and icing sugar. But I would definitely recommend using cream cheese instead because this doesn't work out perfectly. It works out kind of too chunky to pipe properly. So what I'm trying to do here is cream the butter so it's not too stiff, but it's still really stiff. So moral of the story, just buy cream cheese. I usually use the Philadelphia vegan cream cheese. It's so stiff, this butter, which is why I normally like it, but for icing, when you need it to be creamy, it's not going to work. But I decided just add the whipped cream anyway. Usually I would mix the cream cheese and the icing sugar together and then add the whipped cream. That makes a bit of a mess. So you can see the issues that the butter just wasn't mixing in properly. So I call that good enough for the ingredients I have, and then I move on to trying to get the cake out of the pan, which I should have oiled more. But we do get it out in one piece. I have a cake plate here, and then I have a bit of baking paper on top of it to stop me scratching up my cake plate when I cut into the cake. You can see that it's not coming out easy. Again, I'm not professional, but it does come out. So that's the good news. And I can just clean up the mess and get it in place. This cake plate I actually got in a charity shop, but I love it. I think I got it for my birthday last year and I just think it's adorable. So I'm sectioning my icing so that I can colour the different sections so I can pipe it. So I'm starting off with a top layer of just plain buttercream, or whatever you would call this, and spreading that out. to then go in and I want to make it into sections. I could have made the sections smaller, honestly. I was unsure how big to make them, but I think I could have made them smaller. Once that's set, we can start colouring our different bowls. So I had an idea. I wanted to do kind of different flowers, so daisies and lavender, or like sunflowers, should I say more, and lavender. So here I'm using the Colour Mill Icing Food Colouring. This one's super pigmented. But I did forget to shake it, so initially it comes out kind of blue, so I have to shake it and then it comes out very purple. You can see what a nice colour that turns out. Next I do the green, but because I'm used to using the really unpigmented ones, I use a bit too much food colouring in this one. It does turn out a bit darker green than I would have liked, but it's okay. Unless they have this pretty yellow colour. But I needed to cut the top off it because I hadn't used it before. So I got the colours into the icing bags ready to pipe. I did a double bag system so I could switch out the colours, but that didn't really work out, so I could have just done it normally. So I start off trying to do the lavender. I have the smallest pipe and tip on I could find, but I do still make a mistake. Most of the mistakes I make on this is more down to the fact that I used the butter and I couldn't cream it properly, so it came out chunky and it would kind of burst out the bag at points and make it really hard to pipe with. But if you use cream cheese, you might have that problem. I do decide to sit down because I thought it'd just make it easier on me. And I'm really just freestyling this, doing what I want. And I think it's just a fun activity, it wasn't anything serious. More like painting. then I moved on to doing this more of the sunflowery kind of look. And again, it was just a bit a struggle because of the type of icing I was using. So at points when it became really tough, I would move the bag aside and kind of try and get rid of the blockage and then carry on. And then lastly, I use the green. Not sure if you can see that, but you can see that it's just getting clogged. It's also a really small hole, so that might be another reason why it's particularly bad. This could even be a fun activity if you cut the cake up and then you could give one to each of your guests and had the food coloring made up, the icing made up ready, and everyone could decorate their own slice. That would be fun. And there you can see I made a mistake because it just burst out the bag. But it's okay. So once I get all the stems on, the last thing to do is just go through and add the white centers to the sunflowers, or whatever type of flower you want them to be, the yellow flowers. Which still did pose its difficulties. But thank goodness for a spatula being able to scrape things off. And then once we get that done, we're pretty much done here. And I did find that fun even with the tricky icing and that kind of flop. I still found it fun icing the cake. Just having fun with it. So I hope you give this a try. The carrot cake is absolutely delicious, by the way. It's my favourite carrot cake recipe. So do give it a try, and if you do, let me know how it goes. I really appreciate you for watching. Thank you for being here, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.